Addenda to my YouTube video, the DSM is a toy. You can find this video here on my channel if YouTube hasn't deleted it because it's too honest. I think this was a response to my little sister who was going nuts during and just after the election campaigns, who started diagnosing Trump with DSM disorders, which she knows nothing about. She's got a PhD in neuroscience, but she really doesn't know that much about the DSM. She's not qualified to make diagnoses from the DSM, and she's certainly not qualified to make assessment at a distance diagnoses from the DSM, which nobody is qualified to do, except maybe myself. You know nothing about the DSM-4 or 5. You have to be trained in diagnosing the symptoms of access to disorders the way potential doctors are trained through lots of practice and repetition to diagnose the symptoms of physical ailments. Not knowing anything at all about the DSM, you are completely unaware of the DSM's casebook study series. When psychiatrists, clinical, I actually farted on video. It can be, it can go, it's probably the only part of any of my videos that will go viral. They'll cut the fart out and show it all around when they're trying to like detract and disclaim me. When psychiatrists and clinical psychologists and MSWs are trained in the application of the DSM, in other words, they're trained in how to diagnose from the DSM, they're required to master case studies and case histories from the casebook by the hundreds, because it is especially problematic to draw conclusions about people's mental states, especially when you're trying to do spot diagnoses as you are, or using bona fide assessment at a distance techniques. I was a research assistant for several people who invented and developed assessment at a distance techniques in political, social, and personality psychology, including Philip Tetlock, Herbert McCloskey, Eleanor Roche, and Elizabeth Loftus, so I know what I'm talking about. Why don't you people take why don't you people step back a few paces and get real? Don't you see that it is your own feminine narcissism that propels your hate and narcissistic rage at Trump and at men in general? Everything you say about politics is projective identification, transference neurosis. In your case, it might even be transference psychosis. Your father wounded you sometime during your psychosexual developmental stages, ages 6 months to 4 years. All the feminist haters are venting their rage at Trump because he defeated a potential woman president in winning the election. Many of the women in this country and many of the effeminate men desperately needed a woman to be elected president after the first Negro was elected. Why is this? Because you envy men desperately and need a woman president to prop up your egos, to help you repress your envy of men. A woman president would say, see, we can do anything a man can do. We might even be better than a man, depending on how our first woman president behaves. And thereby, you can mollify your ego temporarily. All this bullshit, of course, return of the repressed, these feelings of inferiority, the men will bubble up all the time. But now they have a thing to say to themselves, a phrase that will help them repress it back down out of consciousness. All this bullshit about Trump among women, leftists, and liberals is all just fabricated revenge because Trump took away your chances to use the fact of a female president to feel good about yourselves. Don't you see how petty and shallow and narcissistic it is to require the federal government and other phases of society to help you feel good about yourselves? It's actually psychotic, which makes perfect sense since PMA is already a psychotic society anyway and has been since the late 40s. Thank you.